All right, family, once again, welcome back to this platform. Now, I'm asking a question, and we are going to talk about something here. Russians are saying that Starlink is dangerous for Africa. Why are they saying that? We are going to look at the details why they are saying that. Okay, do you know what Starlink is? Yes, I guess you may know what Starlink is. Starlink is one of Elon Musk's company. Do you think Starlink is brought to Africa to spy on our government intelligence or on us? I guess you guys know how Starlink work. It provides internet access to people via satellite, and the Starlink that we are talking about is a good thing. It's a really good thing. You can even use it when you are in a remote area or even in the forest. As far as you're connected, then you have go ahead to use Starlink. The only thing you need is the terminals. Then you can access the internet access from the satellite. Starlink has about 6,000 satellites in the sky. Now, why is Starlink potentially dangerous? Why is Russians telling Africans that Starlink is dangerous to them? Let's find out. Well, the Russians military is scrambling down to find an alternative to Starlink. Why? Because a major change was implemented by Starlink. That is to cut off all unauthorized Starlink access to the satellite. So Starlink cut off all devices access that are not authorized by them. So after Starlink cut off all those devices, it exclusively include Russian devices. Get that right, not Ukrainian devices, just Russian devices. And that really disrupted Russia's forces that has been using smuggled and illicit Starlink terminals for their battlefield communications. Now, first of all, why the Russians forces smuggle Starlink terminals? It's because Starlink is not authorized in Russia. It has been banned since 2022. So nobody has Starlink access in Russia, but in Ukraine, you can have Starlink access. Now, as Starlink is not accessible in Russia, the only way they can get it is to smuggle it or take it from Ukraine after they have taken some territories in Ukraine, right? So that's the only way they can do it, or smuggle it through ex-Soviet republics. That's how they can do it. Now, a minister of Ukraine, Mikhailo Fedorov, had talked with Elon Musk, and he asked Elon Musk to cut off all Starlink devices that are connected in Ukraine, but not of Ukrainians. Why is he saying this? He wants Elon Musk to cut off all Starlink devices access in Ukraine that are not of Ukrainians. You get it, right? That means Russians are also using Starlink, but they are not authorized to use Starlink. That access, they don't have it. It has been blocked, but they are actually using it. We are going to look at all that. Now, he's basically introducing the white list, which indicates that only officially registered and verified Ukrainian Starlink terminals can connect and have network access. That's what is happening. Let me break something here down for you to understand the context very well. Starlink or internet access is very important at war. Some may be asking why? Because when the war starts, usually powerful nations or Russia will attack your communication system. So Russia did the same to Ukraine by bombarding their communication system or internet services so that they don't have internet access. So when that happens, Elon Musk step in and give Ukrainians internet access with Starlink, saying they should use it for free. And with Starlink, you don't need to have big infrastructures in your country. You only need the Elon Musk satellite in the sky and your terminals on the ground. So that is how Ukrainians have been using Starlink from the beginning of the war. Now, Russians are not happy with that because Starlink is very effective and strong. So Russians have been using the same Starlink to do things to Ukraine. Now, Starlink actually helps Ukrainians a lot during the battle. Starlink provides fast, reliable internet service everywhere in the country. Starlink connection is very hard to jam or disrupt. That is why Ukrainians are able to use drones on Russians. And Starlink has actually helped Ukrainians a lot. I just don't want to dive deep into it, how Starlink actually helps Ukrainians to fight Russians on the battlefield. Now, how do Russians access Starlink? They actually access Starlink by getting their terminals from countries like Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and other ex-Soviet republics. So when they get it from there, they can be able to use it. They just need the terminals. And because Ukraine airspace is open to Starlink satellites, you can use Starlink from anywhere else and it will work perfectly. And that is why Russians were able to send drones back to Ukraine. Now, Zelensky has asked Elon Musk to have whitelist, which simply means he should limit the amount of devices that can connect and names them or registered with specific names. So Ukrainians army have to register Starlink and others before they could operate it in Ukraine. Now, let's talk about this. If Ukrainian army registers Starlink, they does register the Starlink, and the civilians also register the Starlink, that means Russia is out. Russia will not get access to Starlink. any other Starlink in Ukraine which is not registered by the Ukrainian will be cut off. That access will be cut off. That's what it simply means. So you want to know why this is very dangerous for Africa? Yes, in this you can clearly see the points which Russians are aligning at, that this is very dangerous for Africans, because Starlink is no more a civilian company. If the legal questions are being asked, is Starlink a civilian company? You cannot say it, because this Starlink is involved in political things or even military communications. Let's move on, then you'll get to know what the Starlink is operating on. So Russians are very angry right now. They are saying Starlink is not a civilian company, but a political arrangement. So this man called Alexei Zverov, a diplomat from Russia, he said it is important to understand that we are relying on anything Western. Current situation is dangerously overconfident. What does this man means? Simply, he's saying nobody should rely on the West because it's dangerous. Don't rely on the West because it's dangerous. He continued to say again, even taking into an account the active negotiation zone that we are currently holding with the United States of America, that does not stop them from being our adversaries. Now, let me say something here. Why is it being difficult for Russia to have their own ways of communication, despite they have an alternative communication satellite system run by Gazprom Space Systems? And this is very limited because Starlink actually has 6,000 satellites, but the Russian own communication doesn't amount to that. It doesn't have that, so it's limited. So now Russians are now looking to China as an alternative, but it will take time for them to get an authorization and even get these supply numbers that they wanted to replace Starlink. That is it. Now, family, let's actually understand something here. Ukraine and Russia are at war, and this does not concern anyone. And Ukraine and Russia are using Starlink, which is from American company, a network or internet access which is from American company, and they are using that at war, fighting against each other. Now, one part has had meeting with Elon Musk saying he should cut off Starlink access to the other part, which is Russia, and Elon Musk did. Elon Musk cut off the internet access, which is Starlink, from that part. Look at this. How does it seem? This is a political arrangement. This is a political company. This isn't a civilian company anymore. So when Elon Musk does that, Russians are angry. They are angry with the decisions of Elon Musk. Now, for context, this same Elon Musk is not happy with South Africa for not allowing Starlink into their country. So when South Africa is saying Starlink is not a civilian company, so we are not going to allow Starlink into our country to come and spy on our intelligence, to come and collect our data. Even the data are going to be stored in the United States of America. We don't want that. Then it's clear, absolutely right. This is not racism. This is protecting your integrity, protecting your intelligence. So if a legal question is being asked, is Starlink a civilian company or is a political military company network? Then what should we say? Yes, it is a political company. We can say that. But we cannot also say that because Starlink is good. As a matter of fact, Starlink is good. You can use it in the forest. You can use it anywhere. As far as you have the terminals and you are connected, you can use it. It's reliable. It's fast. That's what makes it very good. But yes, the question still remains. Is it a political military company or is a civilian company? Now, let's look at the past. What happened? Starlink was not actually provided for the Ukrainians at first, but when Russians bombed Ukrainians' telecommunication devices, then Elon Musk stepped in and gave Starlink to Ukrainians that they should use for free. That's what happened. So even when Elon Musk gives Starlink to Ukraine and they are using, at a point in time when Ukrainians are ready to bomb a Russian's largest fleet in the Crimean, Starlink, which is Elon Musk's company, Elon Musk take the initiative to cut off Starlink for Ukrainians in order to disrupt their attack on Russia. So Elon Musk decided on himself, I'm going to do this. Look at that. So somebody may be asking, how did he get this confidential information? Yes, because he controls the data. He controls any communications. So anything that you're doing, Elon Musk knows what you are doing. You, this particular person, Elon Musk knows what you are doing. So Elon Musk controls that. That's what Elon Musk did. And also, secondly, when Trump was saying that Ukraine should sign up for their minerals and they are hesitating, Elon Musk threatened them, cut off internet access. Elon Musk shut down Starlink for them. If you are not going to obey order, I'm going to shut you off. That's what Elon Musk did. So the question still remains, is this a military political agenda or is this a political company or a civilian company? So now, this is where African comes in. A lot of African nations got Starlink. They are now using Starlink. But the question is it going to affect our country or is just a normal way of using communications or networks? Because we can see what is happening out there. This is what Russians are up to. This is what Russians are saying that Starlink, Elon Musk company, is up to. They can decide what you should do, and they can decide what you should not do. For instance, we see what happens in Uganda when Uganda passed the law that man should not marry a man, woman should not marry a man. You can see what happens to them. The West actually withdrew a lot of sponsors aid to them because they cannot sponsor them because they are not doing according to their wishes anymore. That's what Starlink is also doing. If you can't do according to our will, then you have to shut you off. We have to shut down the internet access to you. So is it really that Starlink is dangerous for Africa? Even though a lot of African states, a lot of African nations had Starlink now. Nigeria, Ghana, Mauritania, a lot. I can't be mentioning all. They all have Starlink now. But South Africa say no, we don't need your Starlink. Burkina Faso say no, we don't need your Starlink. This is a political arrangement, political company. This is a military company. We don't need that. You are going to be spying on our intelligence. So guys, what do you think? Do you think Starlink is good for Africa or is dangerous for Africa? Whatever it is, just drop your opinion in the comment section. And peace and love. See you in my next video.